welcome to the Disability and podcast, bringing together thoughtful discussion and debate. This month, Mind the Gap's assistant producer, Paul Wilshaw, chats with Charlotte Jones and Emily Blackwell about Mind the Gap's latest touring show, Birdie, and the unique challenges of access for those with learning disabilities and or autism.
Hello and welcome to the Disability and podcast. Today it's my privilege to introduce Charlotte Jones and Emily Blackwell from Mind the Gap.
Hello.
Hello.
Charlotte is an artist in the company and Emily is the creative producer. So I would just want to know, Charlotte, how did you get into the industry?
It all started when we were in Dark Horse Theatre Company in Huddersfield, and that's how the broke into the acting world.
And can you tell us a bit about Dark Horse and your experience?
Yeah, Dark Horse was really fun. We did like lots of circus skills and lots of theatre work in the actual stage itself, and it was so big we had to navigate ourselves around. So it was really fun.
Cool. And Emily, how did you become a creative producer?
Well, basically, I've always loved theatre, but never been much of a performer myself. But really wanted to work in theatre and kind of thought that producing was the best role for my skills. So that's kind of stumbled my way through until I finally got the official title of producer.
And yeah, how many years have you been in the company, Emily?
So it'll be about a year and a half, coming up to 2 years this year. So I was worked in London and Cambridge before this, but then came up to Bradford about 2 years ago.
Cool. And how many years have you been with Mind the Gap?
It's been 9 years since been working with Mind the Gap and still loving it.
So Charlotte, I think you were 1 year after me, and that's how we got to know each other. So about that, I want to know, Charlotte, what was your first ever touring piece of theatre that you did? And what was your favourite memory about that tour?
Ooh, it's got to be Little Space, because Little Space is when we went to Oxford, and it was so much fun that we had a lot of moments of bumper cars, but yeah, we worked really hard as well.
Can you tell us a little bit about A Little Space and who you worked alongside?
Yeah, so Little Space is based on post-pandemic, and on the long side of that we worked with Alison, Alan and Lorraine and a couple of others, like Joanne.
And it was with a company called Gecko, is that correct?
That is correct, pal.
So we worked with Gecko and and that was a brilliant experience. And you liked Oxford. Yes. Big up Oxford, big up down the south for a change. So I was wondering, so you're now on tour with a new show called Birdie. Can you tell us, the listeners, about that show and how it got started?
Yeah, Birdie started last year, and it's all about climate change and how we can learn and adapt and how we can actually do better in the world.
And Emily, as a producer, what has been the struggles and joys of booking Birdie and a Mind the Gap tour?
Birdie is kind of a show that came out post-pandemic when it was harder to go into theatres because obviously all the regulations, and we wanted to take care of our actors. So we made this small hander outdoor piece, and the joys of making something that was so small and flexible is that we get to go into so many non-traditional theatre spaces. So we're going into schools, libraries, community centres, a huge range, as well as outdoor festivals. And because of that, we get to meet lots of young people where it's probably their first time seeing a piece of theatre. I think recently we just been in Darwin, and we had 2 kids see the show in Darwin, and the next day they travelled to Blackburn to see the show. And I think meeting all these amazing people has been a really, really great experience. And I think what's also really nice with a lot of rural touring is that you have that more intimate connection with your audience. A lot of them stay around, a lot of them come to you after the show, and you get to really talk with them and engage about what their experience of the show has been like. So it's a really, really nice experience working on a show like this. And it's kind of some of my kind of favourite theatre to produce. The struggle that we have is that it's the same as everybody has in the theatre industry, where the touring sector is just absolutely on its knees. And we are really only able to do our touring work because we are an MPO with ACE, and so we do get part funded, because to make a tour that is financially sustainable in this current economic climate is incredibly difficult. And I feel real sympathy for a lot of companies because those margins are just a lot harder to work with at the moment. And especially with us, we have to still make sure that we are having the access requirements and we are putting things in place and we're not compromising on what we have to do. So it's just, everything is just a lot harder work since coming out of the pandemic, and touring especially has really struggled.
Yeah, and if our listeners don't know what an MPO is, that means a National Portfolio Organisation, which means that we're funded by Arts Council England. You talked about access to just then, Emily. So what access requirements do a company need to put in place when organising a tour?
The things that I say that you need to consider is what I would say is best practice for anybody going out on the road. Everything that I put in place, I would say that in an ideal world you would do for every single actor. So this is having good, safe accommodation, having adequate break times between travel and performing, making sure there's no super long working days, that the cast have time to rest before they do the show so they can do their best work. Of course, we do have a company stage manager on the road with us that is aware of our actors' access needs. But to be honest, I would say the majority of the time, the things that I'm thinking about and putting in place is what we should be considering for any actor. For like example, we can't put our actors in digs, we have to do private accommodation. But if you asked any actor currently touring, they would all say everyone should be staying in private accommodation because of the stories that have come out with digs about safety and all that kind of thing. So I think it's always our saying is that, you know, when you're thinking about access, actually it is just good practice. And that's what I'm thinking of as a producer. It's all about the care of the team on the road.
Yeah. A question for you, Charlotte, around access is what access needs to be put into place for you as a performer?
It's mostly like the social section of it. It's where, like, if we want space to ourselves, or if we want to have that social interaction with the rest of my castmates, big up them, and and also thinking about how we all can interact with each other in that space. So there we are.
If you're thinking about doing a piece of outdoor theatre, what things should they consider in terms of access? So this is more about companies and how they should think about access. So what small wins can theatre companies put into place to make sure that they are hiring actors with disabilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is getting better and we are taking small steps, but of course nothing is perfect. I think the thing that we struggle the most with is that we just need longer lead up times to stuff. We can't do things last minute. It's really difficult, and we have to have good communication with wherever we're going to. We have to know the details about the hotel, about the space. We have to know real specific detail because we have to plan for our actors in that space. But, you know, that is what should be expected anyway. But of course, everybody is, you know, has 5 million jobs to do. Things get rushed, but actually for us, we need the time taken on it. So I would say that it's a really easy win just to be like, this is our process and this is our timeline, and just putting those easy long timelines in of going, this is when we are going to deliver it to you. If you say to me, we will deliver it to you 8 weeks before, you need to deliver it to me 8 weeks before because I've now planned for that. And they're just very small things but can actually make a big difference to us when organising, and you know, for outdoor or theatres, either or really.
Okay, and Charlotte, with Birdie, how long have you been rehearsing for that project?
Like a year and more.
So a year and more. So that says a lot about how much work that does go into a production that we do as a company, but also it also makes sure that we get the best quality work that we can do. So you've done outdoor theatre and indoor theatre.
Yeah, that's right.
So with the shows you've been in, what has been your top 3 memories about touring?
To remember not to fall off, because obviously I had memories with that one. End up with a head injury at one point.
So you fell off stage. When was that?
It was in the middle of the tour when we were in Oxford, and we were actually performing in that moment. So it wasn't just one stage; it was 2 stages.
It was 2 stages, and you fell. And what show was that for?
That was for Little Space.
A Little Space. Okay, and you fell off the stage twice.
Yes, twice.
Okay, now listeners, I'm known as the clumsiest person in this company. I think Charlotte has just beaten me. I can't believe that. Okay, can you say 2 other memories?
The times with Birdie is when the wind caught so much of the wings, it couldn't manage to hold up the strength of to keep the wings up for long.
So the wind was so hot that. So can you tell the audience, what does the set look like of Birdie?
So it's like a set mobile where Homie brings it on stage, and
Homie is
Lorraine Brown.
It's Lorraine.
Yeah, and it has like a storyboard of traffic, and it has like a mixture of other things like a yoga mat and a couple of other items as well.
Yeah, one more. What other memories have you got? Even if it's about being an artist or even being in Performance Academy at Mind the Gap.
Being in a Performance Academy is when we had so much fun that we just lost control. So we just couldn't stop laughing, and we just had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Charlotte, you bring the fun in this company. You really do. You laugh, you smile. Yeah. So, what tips would you give theatres when booking a show with learned disabled actors in the cast? Like, what tips would you give them?
I would say that don't be scared or frightened. I think sometimes there's a lot of, oh, I don't want to do something wrong. And actually that kind of causes more of a problem. I think to be open and flexible is like the most important way, because sometimes I have to do things in a particular way as a producer, and because of access I can't shift on it, but I know, theatres can work with us, and we are really open to having those conversations and talking through why, but again it goes back down to time. It's over email can sometimes be really difficult, but when we have those times where we can meet face to face or have an hour, it's actually really easy to explain, and they go, oh yeah, that won't take very much of our time to adjust, but for us it's a big reason to implicate it. But I think the main thing for me is that when casting or doing shows, it's, we should sit loud and proud in front of any programme that you have on. It's not a tick box exercise. Great work is being made, radical work is being made, and it should sit front and centre in your programme, and you should be open to going out there and seeing the incredible work that is being made, because it's just going to enhance your programme.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. To follow on from that, Charlotte, do you feel that learned disabled stories are being told enough on our stages, and do you think learned disabled people are being represented enough in our industry? And if not, how can we change that?
It would be lovely to have more representation in theatre, to learn a bit more about their story and how we can actually have that full experience of understanding the journey.
And you're working down with a company down in London, aren't you, at the moment, learning skills around being on a board. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I'm also learning how to be a board member, so that's really exciting.
What things have you learned from that?
Yeah, because we managed to go down to London for one of the residencies for governance with Access All Areas, that based in London. And yeah, we get to learn a lot of different things that involves with the governance, how things are different.
Yeah, learn about being on a board and how companies can actually work is a really important thing. And I think Access All Areas, I big them up so much on this podcast. But I think it's great that they are showing that you just need to learn how to work to learn disabled people to actually make sure that you can go and just learn disabled people can work in boards, and you just need to have that time. And I think that's a major thing on this podcast today, is that time matters, and we need to give people time to rehearse, time to make sure access is in place, and to have fun. And what stories would you like to see on stage? If you were an audience member, what stories would you like to see?
The things I would like to see is putting the barriers into place and to see how they overcame their barriers and how they actually can influence others with their stories.
And actually, the same question goes to you, Emily. What stories would you like to see?
I think it's a mixture. I think I've seen a lot of really good personal kind of autobiographical work, but I think that is often what gets picked up by theatre. So I think also I should be able to go and see a Shakespeare play and just someone happens to be disabled in the cast and it's not made a big thing of either, because I think casting a wide range of people always changes interpretations of plays and it can make it really interesting for an audience. So yeah, I'm always for the mixture. I like everything.
And Emily, you also said that you've been at Mind the Gap for 2 years now. What has been your favourite memory?
My favourite memory was probably travelling down to the Greenwich and Docklands festival last year with Birdie. I had to step up as production manager, so I had to drive a van for 8 hours, which was a new experience for me and very fun. But I just have this big memory of the second show of we'd been lucky throughout the day because the day had decided to be absolutely awful with the weather. We had these huge downpours, thunder and lightning was happening, and both times we performed, the rain just stopped. And I remember in the second show we were performing at Cutty Stark and we had the Thames behind us and you could see Canary Wharf and you could just see these grey clouds over Canary Wharf that as the show went on just moved closer and closer to us. And it was such a dramatic backdrop to our little, small scale show. And what was even more incredible, we had this about 300-400 audience and just so focused on the show with aerial and gymnastics and everything going on behind. And we just had this really engaged audience focusing on Birdie and the story of climate change as these clouds rolled in, and I just felt like it was such a dramatic moment and just really atmospheric and visceral. And yeah, it was probably my favourite moment of the whole tour, just for this kind of extra environmental atmosphere that was brought on that day.
That sounds epic. I think the main question is, right now, where is Birdie touring?
So Birdie has just started its tour and is going to about 22 places, and we're performing about 44 times between now and October of 2024. It's going to a big variety of places. We seem to be going to Cheshire quite a lot, but we'll also be going up to Sunderland and down to Reading. So it's going to have a big mixture of schools and libraries, community centres, theatres and outdoor festivals. So yes, it's been a really nice mixture, and Charlotte will get to do the show multiple times.
So you'll be getting to see Charlotte, you'll be getting to see Lorraine and Alan.
Yeah, that's right.
So come and see the show. And so I know at the moment, Charlotte, that you are creating your own piece of work called Knotted.
That is right.
Can you tell us about the show? Because I'm really excited to hear about this.
Yeah, Knotted is basically showing how the different worlds become one, hopefully, because it's like how people live with the sense of learning disability, since we are in that part of society that just wants to have a voice and just to be heard, and sometimes to take that as an acknowledgement to actually hear our voices.
And how is that being done? So is it stories? Is it through dance? How are you actually doing the show?
Yeah, it's based on physical theatre and aerial dance, because we had training in with Vince.
So can you tell us who Vince is? Because
Vince is a dance aerialist. We get to work with him, and we get to hang upside down in buildings and balconies and in harnesses. So yeah, it's really great fun.
Once again, that word, fun. But yeah. And so what do you want to happen with Knotted? Where would you like to take the show?
We hopefully gonna take it out on tour that eventually gonna be outdoors and show the world how we work.
So Knotted is in its R&D stage, is that correct at the moment?
That is correct.
When it goes live, it will be definitely on the Mind the Gap webpage. So please, listeners, listen out for this, because this is a show done by Mind the Gap artists Lorraine Brown and Charlotte Jones. It's their idea. They're working with a brilliant team, and yeah, let's get behind this show. What is next for you? What show would you like to be in next?
Ooh, I wasn't quite sure about this as yet, but but definitely would like to be in a sequel of a Birdie version.
A Birdie version sequel. Okay. And Emily, what is your next show that you'll be producing?
Ooh, we have some really exciting things coming on at Mind the Gap that we're not quite ready to announce yet, but they are incredibly exciting, and we're just in an R&D phase of it now, and hopefully we'll be able to announce it soon, but I'm going to keep it under wraps for now, so you'll have to wait and see.
That is great. Okay, thank you so much, Emily, and thank you so much, Charlotte. And thank you, and take care. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you for listening. We do hope you've enjoyed this episode of Disability And. Further episodes of Disability And can be found through the Disability Arts online website. Next month, Colin Hambrook chats to sculptor Tony Heaton about Shapes, Disability Arts Movement in Venice exhibition.